So my camera died right while I was doing this. So I'm going to do part one and part two of this reunion because I'm not going to merge these together because I got other things I need to do tomorrow and I can't be up late at night. So as I was saying, what is the show? They really need to figure out what this show is going to be, right? Because if it's going to just be housewives showing up, getting into petty arguments, really getting into like fake kabuki theater, then they really need to take the reality television off of it, right? Because the fact is, Marge's ex-husband dying would have been something that was worthy to be aired, even if it is painful. And I'm kind of done with that, with talent, the housewives determining or trying to produce what needs to be on, which we'll get to in a second, right? So then Jennifer Aydin admits that the reason that she talks to Laura, right, is because that she was mad at Marge and she wanted to get back at Marge, right? And then it comes out that Melissa already knew about the Laura rumor prior to the finale. Now let's go back. If you were watching this show, you would have had no idea that Melissa knew about this rumor because, you know, it was, oh, let's talk to Laura, whatever. And this is where production begins and becomes complicit. Because let me tell you what happens, right? I think that Teresa heard about the rumor. She called somebody at Bravo. I'm not going to say she called Andy. She called somebody, right? And either Joe said, I don't want cameras to be there, or they could not get a camera there to tape the conversation, right? So now they have to pretty much recreate this situation on camera as if it was the first time it was happening, right? And the fact is, everyone's complicit in this, from production all the way down up to Melissa. Like, even though Melissa said, I already knew about this, when Danielle sat her down and said it, she was like, they already told me, why are you bringing this up, right? But because they can't really break the fourth wall, or they shouldn't break the fourth wall, why were you fighting with Teresa then at the party, Melissa, when you should have been fighting with her when you first saw her on Jump, when you had your first filming with her because of this whole conversation with Joe, right? See, so everybody's kind of involved in this kind of kabuki theater that's going on of reality TV, right? Because let's go back. Because the way Jennifer Aydin, the way they dumped it, because this was all a plan, right? As I said, Teresa and Jennifer Aydin needed a patsy. They figured out Fuda wasn't going to be the person. They tell Danielle. Danielle does not know that Melissa knows, right? So then she goes, so they're like, oh, this is perfect. So she's wringing her hands. She's trying to determine the side. She gets the bad advice from her mother. Because what if her mother had said, don't say anything? What were they going to do? Right? So Danielle goes, she tells, and there's this whole big explosion at the finale when in reality, Melissa already knew. Right? So the only person who did not know about this, as I said 2-3 episodes ago when the finale happened, was Danielle and maybe Rachel Fuda, right? Everybody knew that she was being set up to kind of carry this whole delivery. And when the fact is that this is what the season should have started with. Not the flashback to the party. They should have started with Melissa from the first time she sees Teresa at Danielle's house talking about arguing over bridesmaid dresses. Bitch, why were you talking to my husband about this cheating rumor over the summer, right? Why was that not the first thing out of Melissa's mouth, right? The first time she sees Teresa when they're filming. Right? So this is why I say production is complicit with this kind of, recreating reality when all you have to do is just film reality. If the women aren't interesting, find more interesting women, right? But quit trying to recreate drama in reality for the sake of doing it and giving us these faux, fake plot points when in the fact of there's a lot of things going on in their lives that they may not want to share, but are worthy to be documented. And I think that there is an investment with creative and with the talent and production of trying to show these women in the best light as opposed to showing them in their most authentic and true light. So anyway, Danielle says, I don't, Andy goes, do you feel set up? Now let's talk about Andy for a second. So if you have heard anything about the Bravo verse that's been going on, there's a big brouhaha dust up going on with like Robin Dixon, Potomac. I don't watch that, but her and Giselle concocting storylines. Do you think Andy's reaction was authentic as if he already knew, or was he shocked? He wasn't giving me shocked. He wasn't giving me, this is the first time I'm hearing about it. He wasn't giving me, I found out about this at production. I'm not saying Andy was involved or complicit, but I just didn't get the sense of, what were you all guys doing? Again, trying to play in my face. You knew what they were doing. They were recreating storylines for the sake of the show in order so therefore their whole business wouldn't have to come out there. And I was just like, okay, stop playing in our face. And so then Danielle says, I don't feel like I was anybody's patsy, but we know that that's not true because you were set up, right? Helen Keller can tell you that you were set up. So I was just like, you know what? Stop playing in my face. And I was like, and production is complicit in this. And it's just really just kind of, if you're going to give us fake good storylines, give us something good. But they keep like hitting the middle of the road boring shit because nobody wants their real tea to be spread, right? So then it's like Teresa and Louis calling Margaret's son. I totally believe Margaret's son, right? I totally believe this happened. I don't believe Margaret would make this up. And once again, I am right about Dolores. Because Margaret goes to Dolores and says, well, you know what's true. And Dolores is like, yeah. Then Teresa's like, well, why didn't you tell me? Pretty much like the supervisor goes, like, why didn't you tell me this meeting was happening? That's how Teresa spoke to Dolores. Like, girl, you, like she's Roz on 9 to 5, right? Like that's pretty much is what Teresa talked to Dolores about. And Dolores says, as I said last week and the week before that, I don't want to be involved in any of this. So, okay, fine, Dolores. If you don't want to be involved, then you're going to have to put some skin in the game on this, right? You're going to have to open up because I'm already hard side-eyeing you because we had to find out at the reunion that the man you're dating is not really divorced. Right? So what are you really there for? If you're not going to play the Jen Fessler role of being a Jiminy Cricket, then what are you really doing? Right? Like, even you wouldn't have to do that. If you want to be Dawn Dolores and you go around kind of like Carolyn Manzo used to do and try to squash beefs and be the Dawn of the group or whatever, I would take that. But you have to get some skin in the game here. And I mean, I love your confessional looks. Your son is hot. Everything is great. But you need to put some skin in the game, and I'm just not okay with you just being on the outside because you don't want to be involved. Protecting your peace is important, but you can protect your peace for free, right? You're on a reality show, so your piece should be on a chopping block. Everybody else's piece is on a chopping block, right? And then we just get to like Melissa and Teresa going back again, and they're just so easily triggered, and it just got annoying. And even Andy says, there's no growth. There's no growth on both sides, right? Like, no, after all these seasons and all these years, nobody's grown. No one's just said, fine, whatever, because it's just so petty and it's so ingrained. And Melissa has an investment in this conflict because she just wants to stick it to Teresa because she feels like she's just been wronged by Teresa for so many years over this, right? Meanwhile, the guys are backstage, and then we find out that Louis done did little Frankie Jr. wrong. And I was like, so Louis out here just really acting like, again, Dex from Dynasty taking out Alexis's enemies for her, right? Because that really is what the tease is giving, right? And then we get like, you know, the coffee reading for Jennifer Aydin, where she takes another, Jennifer Aydin is really lined up as Teresa's first general, putting her mouth on how Melissa didn't visit No. Like, if I know I just got said Melissa needs to be petty, needs to stop being petty. I would have gotten Jennifer Aydin's face because Jennifer Aydin likes to take up and like sing Teresa's chorus lines for her, and you need to keep my dead father-in-law's name out your mouth, right? Like, Jennifer Aydin just really is like this close. I don't want to incite violence, but someone just kind of needs to drag her one Louis. Like, she needs to get that quick little tug, like Danielle Staub gave Margaret, just to let you know I'm not the bitch to fuck with, right? So anyway. She talks about her marriage with Bill and talking about how, look, that one session was good enough. Yeah, because Bill said it was good enough. Because you know what? He said he could find him a younger wife who don't want to go to therapy. And she has a nanny. And she has 2 grandparents. So really, Jennifer Aydin is just complaining about nothing. okay? So if you got all this help at the house and you want your husband home more, let him be home more. You just want to have your Chanel bags, you just want to have your big ass house, then whatever. So that's why, like I said, this whole Bill and Jennifer Aydin thing was fugazi, because she has help at home. She just wants to complain and be whatever. So again, I'm not wishing bad in their marriage, but I wouldn't be surprised if something bad happens, right? And then let's get to let's squash this thing about Jennifer Aydin's child and her like career decision, right? So she's like, my child wanted to be a Broadway star, and now she wants to be a therapist. Here's the analogy I want to give you. I have a pet squirrel in my home. It's my best friend, and I love my pet squirrel. One day I leave home, and my house burns down, and my pet squirrel dies. Someone comes to tell me, your pet squirrel's dead, it died in your house. Now I want to be a firefighter. Who's to blame for me wanting to be a firefighter? The person who told me my house burned down, or the person who set my house on fire? Work that analogy out for the people in the back. I'm sure the folks that are sitting in the front can make it. If you don't, I'll work it out for you in the comments. But you cannot blame the messenger when there is a person who you literally incited the fire in your life. So enough with, and I'm really glad Margaret stood up and says, I am not going to take responsibility for what your child's career decision is, okay? So then Jennifer Fessler asked the billion-dollar question, so what was the point of bringing it to Danielle? What was the point of bringing this up to Melissa if everybody already knew? And then all of a sudden, everybody had marbles in their mouth. Nobody can say anything. Everyone's just like, and we know what it was. And then Jennifer Aydin decides she wants to be the teacher's pet, be like, well, Andy, do you not like it when housewives hide things? Bitch, shut the fuck up, right? You weren't hiding anything, and it was none of your business anyway, right? You were so far removed from Melissa having an affair on Joe Gorga that it was not your place anyway, right? And all you were doing is trying to get this together and have this blamed on Margaret. And the fact is, Margaret caught no strays out of this because everybody knew. Because Margaret stays playing three-dimensional chess. So when next season Margaret hatches a plan to take all these bitches down, they all gonna cry and be like, Margaret's so evil, and they all would have had it coming because Margaret's not the one to fuck around with, right? And the whole time, Teresa has plausible deniability. She never did anything with the information. She didn't say anything. Louis called Joe. She was on her way. Teresa stays trying to keep her hands clean, but as I discussed in the Housewives Housewives story time, you are still complicit even if you don't do anything if you're present in this place of wrongdoing, right? So that's Teresa's thing. She's like, I don't do anything, but you're around every time something bad is being said about Melissa, and there's no evidence of you doing anything. If there was evidence of you saying, don't do that, that's not true, blah, 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 that's evidence of you doing something. But Teresa does nothing because she either A, does not care, B, hopes it's true, and C, does not care. So, enough with that, right? So I was just like, okay, whatever. So then we get to the whole Margaret's kids being called. I think I jumped ahead of that early. And then Jennifer Aydin's like, oh, it's spoofing. Ain't no spoofing. Louis' crazy ass called Margaret's son. He didn't know where he worked, found out, and it's Tracy. And I think he totally did it. So I was just like, whatever. So then the men get ready to come out. And guess what, right? Danielle goes in the back and says to her husband, they set me up. They set me up. See that? So now I'm convinced. Now everybody who said it was right, Danielle is playing a game, right? Because she sat on that couch and said, "I don't believe they set me up. I'm no one's pawn." And then you get in the back when you think the cameras are off and you forget the mic is on, and then you tell them you were set up. So Danielle is making her bed to be Team Teresa. Have at it, because if Melissa does end up getting fired or not happening, she's gonna come after you or probably Rachel Fuda anyway, right? Then Andy goes back and goes to start whimpering, and Louis being like, don't do anything. I don't want anything to happen. If you all get up, like I'll end up and I'll fucking get my ass beat. The fuck? Like, you ain't got no security, right? Like, you ain't got nobody, there's no security on these things. Like, why are you pleading at the altar of Louis not to start shit? Your conversation have been, fuck around and find out. And so again, it's just this whole kabuki theater of this franchise just irritates me because it has so strayed far from what it originally was. Like even just watching season 5 to now, there's just a stark difference in just the authenticity with these ladies. And the fact is that they should have long since rinsed and repeated with this cast, right? And I think that moving forward, you should not be on a Real Housewives franchise, a Real Housewives for more than 3 seasons. I'm sorry, right? There are more than enough people out here now in the world who will happily display all their messy business, right? For a lot less than what you're paying these people who you've had on for 6, 7, and 8 seasons. And that's just true tea. So then the men come out, and John Fuda does look good. Like, everybody is like, look, Rachel's like, I'm not getting booted because of your lumpy, dumpy ass. He went and got liposuction, and John Fuda is looking good. So, typically I'll end with this. I'll say that typically these reunions are 3 parts, and I'd be like, oh my God, 3 parts? This was worthy of 3 parts because there's still a lot of road to be hoed, and this Bo Dietl situation needs to have a full-ass explanation, and Teresa keeps looking like she ain't heard of Bo Dietl, she didn't know about private investigators. So I'm going to be definitely looking forward to this part 3 episode. I hope I don't have to bring the glasses out and read people down for filth, but knowing the way these chicks move, the glasses may be back next week. Thanks, guys. Have a good night. Oh, don't forget to like, subscribe, share.